Chapter 2 Puppy Wanted. The next day, Mandy was so eager to tell everybody about Molly's puppies that she raced across the playground without looking where she was going. As she turned the corner of the school building, she banged straight into someone coming from the opposite direction. "Ouch!" said Mandy, rubbing her nose. "Ow!" said a voice, and Mandy looked down. A boy was sitting on the ground, rubbing his head. A pair of glasses hung from one ear. "Sorry," said Mandy. "I was running too fast." The boy looked up and put his glasses back on. "So was I," he said. "Is your nose all right?" Mandy gave it another rub. "I don't think it's broken," she said. The boy grinned. "You're Mandy Hope, aren't you?" he said. "From Animal Ark?" Mandy looked at him. "I know you," she said. "You've got a cat named Benji." She frowned. "The only thing is, I can't remember your name." "James Hunter," said the boy, standing up. "I'm in the class below you, Mrs. Black's class." Mandy was thinking. "Benji had an eye infection last month, didn't he?" she said. James nodded. "Your dad gave him some drops, and he's fine now." Mandy smiled. "I'm glad," she said. James had his glasses on properly now. If he was in the class below her, he must be about 8 years old. He had brown hair that flopped over his eyes, and his glasses were already beginning to slide down his nose. He pushed them back up again. "So why were you in such a rush?" asked Mandy. James shook his hair out of his eyes. "I was in a hurry to get to the bulletin board," he said. "I have something to put up." "What?" asked Mandy. "An ad," James said. The news bulletin board was terrific. It was a big pin board on the wall of the main school hall, but you could put up all sorts of messages on it. So, if you wanted to sell your bike, or if you'd gotten an award, you could let everybody know. The main hall was going to have some building work done to it this year. Mandy hoped they wouldn't lose the bulletin board. It was a great way of finding out what was going on in Welford. "That's where I was going," said Mandy. "I have some news as well." Just then the bell rang, and Mandy and James looked at each other. "Come on," said Mandy. We'll just have time to put up our ads if we hurry." They raced around to the front of the doors of the school and into the main hall. As usual, there was a crowd around the bulletin board. Mandy and James had to squeeze past several people to get near it. "Come on, Mandy," Jill said as she hurried past. "You'll be late." "This will only take a second," Mandy said. Jill looked back over her shoulder. "How was Toto this morning?" she asked. "Mom says you can take him home tomorrow," Mandy said. "She was really impressed when I told her how much you knew about tortoises." Jill yelled, "Yippee!" and raced off down the corridor. Mandy grinned. Jill must have done an awful lot of work. When she came around to Animal Ark last night, Jill knew everything perfectly. Mandy thought she must be able to recite that tortoise information pamphlet in her sleep now. Mandy unzipped her school bag and pulled out the ad she had written. She put it up on the board and stood back looking at it. "Congratulations to Molly, the best Labrador in the world. 5 puppies, all doing well." The bell stopped ringing, and James made a face. "I'll get in trouble with Mrs. Black if I'm late again," he said. He pushed a pin into the bulletin board and looked at his ad. "There," he said. "Gotta go. Bye, Mandy." "Bye," said Mandy. Then James was off, racing down the corridor. He looked back. "Nice running into you," he joked. But Mandy wasn't listening. She was looking at the notice James had put up. "Wanted. Puppy. Good home. Contact James Hunter." Mandy stared at the notice for a moment. Then she turned and looked for James. He was already halfway along the corridor, heading for his classroom. "James!" she called. He looked around. "Meet me here at recess," she shouted. James looked puzzled. "Why?" he called back. "I just had the most terrific idea," said Mandy.